But because trying to sleep for a year is a bit of an insane act, I'm going to put her in Take a Breather. So she thinks if she just goes against what humans do, she'll prove to herself that she is an alien. She's just a 20-something-year-old trying to find her way in the world. Hello and welcome to this video. So recently I made a video talking about some books I had recently read with female protagonists that could be described as being a little bit unhinged. And I will link that video down below. And after making that video, it got me thinking about who the most unhinged female character in literature is. And so I made a list of, I think, all of the books I've read, which include a protagonist that is a bit unhinged, and I thought I would go through each one and rank them to see who gets the prize of being the most unhinged female in literature. So I will first say that I haven't read every book that includes an unhinged female protagonist, so I'm just going to be including the books that I've read. But please, if you have any recommendations for books that could fit within this category, let me know, because I really enjoy reading them. And the definition of unhinged is a person who is maybe a bit disturbed, a bit unstable, a bit distraught, maybe a bit mad too, who is maybe struggling with life, and in order to deal with this struggle is maybe acting a bit unconventionally. And why I enjoy stories with unhinged female protagonists is because I think there's something quite cathartic about reading from a perspective which is quite unconventional, because I think there is a feeling of wanting to fit in and to be liked and to be normal. And so I like reading about characters that kind of reject that and kind of do things their own way. And also I think most people and most characters in literature are at least a little bit unhinged. I think it's quite difficult to get through life without being a little bit crazy because life is crazy and it doesn't really make sense. So it's quite hard to get through it without becoming a little bit insane. Oh, and I forgot to say, I'm doing a tier list. So I have 3 categories on my tier list. The top category is need gel time. So these are the characters that have gone so far that maybe they need to go take some time out. Then we have take a breather. This is a bit less severe than gel time. Maybe these characters just need to take a moment to think things through a bit. Then we have the last category, unhinged but understandable. So the characters where you can kind of totally get where they're coming from. And so let's see who gets the prize of being the most unhinged female protagonist in literature. Let's start. So starting out, we have the character of Circe, and Circe is a goddess from the Greek god times, and she turns men who come to her island into pigs, which is quite an unhinged act. But in actuality, she has quite a kind heart, because there is a very good reason as to why she turns men into pigs. And in truth, she really wants to help people. I think she is quite a genuine, kind character. And so I would put her in unhinged, but understandable. Next, we have the unnamed narrator from my year of rest and relaxation. And this character tries to sleep for a year because she's just fed up with life, and she thinks if she sleeps for a year, then she will wake up revitalized and kind of be reborn again, which is kind of interesting experiment. And I wouldn't say she does anything that could be described as illegal, and I think a lot of people could relate to how she's feeling in the book, because she's grieving, she's struggling with the pressures of life, and it's quite relatable actually. But because trying to sleep for a year is a bit of an insane act, I'm going to put her in Take a Breather, because that is kind of what her sleeping for a year plan is as well, taking a breather. Next we have the character Irina Sturgis from Boy Parts, and I think she definitely needs to go and needs gel time. I don't want to spoil anything about the book, but if you've read the book, I'm sure you will agree with me that she needs to go to jail. Then we have Natsuki from Earthlings. Now this one, it's a bit harder to rank because the things that happen in the book can't really happen in reality, especially towards the end. I mean, I suppose they could, but it seems unlikely, because Natsuki tries to do things that no human would do, so she can kind of prove to herself that she is an alien. Because she believes she's an alien, she doesn't believe she's an actual human. So she thinks if she just goes against what humans do, she'll prove to herself that she is an alien. But in doing so, that means she has to do really crazy things. But I think I would just put her in take a breather, because I mean, she does do things that are illegal, but I don't know, maybe at the high end of take a breather. Then I've included Violet from Jazz, and I recently read this book because I'm part of a reading group, and this was our book of the month. And I've included Violet because she is married and her husband has an affair, and her husband then kills the person he had an affair with, who was like an 18-year-old girl, and Violet turns up at the funeral for this 18-year-old girl and slashes this girl's face, really as a, I suppose, a metaphor for her trying to dissolve her beauty, the beauty of the dead girl, but it's ironic because the girl is dead. This is not the only unhinged thing that Violet does in the story. For example, in the first chapter, it says Violet sits in the road for no apparent reason, just because. And also, in the first chapter, she steals a baby, but then turns up at the scene a couple of hours later saying she just went for a walk, and people believe her, but also are a bit like, why are you just going for a walk? However, as unhinged as she is, I think the things she does are quite understandable. So I'm going to put her in unhinged, but understandable. Then we have Samantha from Bunny, and I wrote a little note, and I wrote, definitely take a breather, go to the seaside, read a book, stop attending parties where heads explode. And I think that's all that needs to be said. Then we have Esther Greenwood from The Bell Jar. I think she's going straight in, unhinged but understandable. The book is really a look at depression and deep realization, like feeling like you're not present in the moment and struggling with being a person in the world. Esther goes to New York for this internship, and it should be the time of her life, but she can't quite connect to the moments that she's having. And I think this is very relatable for a lot of people. It can sometimes be hard with all the stresses that come with life, and the sadness that comes with life, to really feel present in the moment. And so this one is, I think, completely justified. Then we have Amy from Gone Girl, and I wrote, maybe you could just leave your husband, or maybe you could try to frame him for murder. In choosing the latter, I think jail time might be the only option. So she's going and needs jail time. Then we also have Eddie from Luster. She has an affair with a married man, which isn't, I mean, it's a little bit unhinged, but the most unhinged part of that particular situation is that Eddie then moves in with the married man and his wife and their adopted daughter, and that of course creates an interesting dynamic. But I think she's a good person at heart. She's just a 20-something-year-old trying to find her way in the world, and so she goes in unhinged but understandable. Then we have Kathy from Wuthering Heights. My soul and your soul are the same. You have to admire her complete love for Heathcliff, and so I think I would put it in unhinged but understandable, because I do admire her strong ability to love. Then we have Young-hae from The Vegetarian, and this book is quite interesting because Young-hae is kind of the protagonist but kind of not the protagonist. So the story is completely about her, but we never hear from her perspective. We hear from 3 different perspectives on Young-hae's situation, and it's quite interesting because Young-hae is suffering from depression. I think she decides to not eat meat in the book, but I think that's really a metaphor for depression, and so we just get to hear kind of what other people's opinions on her depression is rather than hearing from her. And I think she doesn't do anything that can't be understood. She's just struggling, and so she goes in unhinged but understandable. And I think those are all the books I've read with unhinged female protagonists, and I think what has been interesting through doing this is that for a lot of them, I would say it's fairly understandable what they do. And I think that's because, like I said at the beginning of this video, it's quite hard to get through life without being a little bit unhinged. And I think looking at all of these, the top place goes to Irina from Boy Parts. That is because what she does in the book is illegal, and in a lot of these other books, the actions that the characters take aren't illegal. Also, the writing completely matches with the content of the novel. The writing is also quite Unhinged, actually. And yes, that is the video. Here is the tier list, and I've also put it in order now from what I think is the most unhinged to the least unhinged. And let me know, again, like I said earlier, if you have any suggestions for this list and where they would go in the list. So thank you for watching, and I will see you in another video soon. Bye bye.